Okay, and we're live. This is WaterCitizen Media, and we're here with Debra Shore. Deborah, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
I'm delighted to be with you today. I'm Debra Shore. I'm an elected member of the Board of Commissioners of the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago. That's the agency that treats sewage and manages stormwater for all of Cook County, Illinois. I'm in my second term on the board. I'm one of 9 commissioners elected at large throughout Cook County.
Nice. And how did you get involved with water? What got you into a position where you'd be considered for commissioner? What's your background?
I've been a long-time volunteer doing habitat restoration in the Cook County Forest Preserves. And through that work, I learned a lot about rare nature interwoven in our great metropolis, but I also began to be more involved politically because these places that I cared about have been largely neglected, and I began to advocate for more resources, for better care, and to volunteer to help elect more reform-minded people to the Cook County Board, which oversees the forest preserve.
Nice. And a lot of people don't realize how much citizen boards play a role in our water and wastewater utilities. It's not just the nameless, faceless engineers and scientists and regulators, right? What is your relationship with the staff?
So our board sets policy, votes on contracts and the annual budget, and hires the executive director. We don't have that much direct interaction with staff. We're kind of up on the balcony, taking a higher view, trying to also help to set the vision for the agency. But we try not to micromanage or get into day-to-day operations.
Although you guys are able to get involved if, say, there's a legislative issue or a funding issue that needs to go to the legislature, there's often a lot of political clout on those boards. Now, we're here with the EPA Water Technology Innovation Cluster Leaders meeting, which was many more than just the 20 cluster leaders. There was a lot of folks here in the room interested in what's going on with clusters. And you gave a really fabulous perspective, not just for Chicago, but for folks in a similar situation with water utilities throughout the country, of what are some of the interests from water utilities in clusters, and then we'll get to some of the challenges. So what are some of the benefits and opportunities?
So here in Cook County, the Water Reclamation District and the City of Chicago's Department of Water Management are 2 very large utilities, and we're both instrumental in helping to launch a water cluster here called Current. And we see this new cluster as a chance to provide a test bed that our utility can become for new technologies. I see it as a way to build on our access to fresh water to drive economic development and also ecological protection. But I talked about what I also feel are some of the obstacles to innovation and to collaboration, which clusters are all about. And one is culture, that ours as an agency had been a culture of treating waste. And we didn't realize that we had resources that could be captured and monetized. Another obstacle was legal. Once we realized we could monetize these resources, our lawyers said we didn't have statutory authority to do so. We had to go to our General Assembly and get a bill passed that would allow us to sell things. That's a huge culture shift to seeing ourselves as a resource recovery agency. Other obstacles include money. Resources are scarce, time, and imagination in some respects. And so anyone working with utilities in a cluster needs to keep some of these obstacles in mind and figure out how can we bring value to a utility to participate and collaborate.
Now, and this meeting is being held at WEFTEC, largest water conference on the continent, probably about 20,000 people and 1,000 companies in the expo. And one of the things that WEF and AWWA and the drinking water side and others have done is created something called LIFT as sort of a go-between between the utilities, the water and wastewater utilities, and the innovators. How do you all work with WEF, with other organizations like National Association of Clean Water Agencies, NACWA, the largest water agencies? How does that help?
So our executive director, David St. Pierre, is, I believe, the vice president of NACWA, and he's very involved with the national associations, and he is one of the co-chairs of our water cluster currently. I, as a board member, don't have that much involvement in some of those things.
And we've interviewed David many times. Usually I have to stand on a chair so I can I can talk to him. So how does he report back to the board sort of when he comes back from one of these meetings, or when there's a finding, new report from LIFT, or the Water Workforce Development, or some of these other reports that come out? How does that get back to the board meeting?
Yeah, not enough, frankly. Dave shared testimony he provided before Congress recently with our board, but doesn't regularly report on his interactions or any of the material that may come out of those meetings. If we're interested, we pursue it on our own.
Do any of the board members ever go to Water Week when all the water?
We have. I've gone to some of the NACWA meetings. We've gone to some of the One Water meetings. Board members attend a variety of different meetings depending on their interests.
And this is usually out of pocket, or maybe some per diem?
For instance, we all attend WEFTEC,
right,
either here or in New Orleans. And we do have a travel budget for each board member to go to some of the NACWA conferences.
Right, but you guys aren't salaried. There are
We're
salaried.
paid a salary.
Okay.
We get to hire a couple of staff.
Nice.
It's still considered a part-time role.
Right.
But we do get paid a salary.
How about some of the emergency response issues that have come up? A lot of that was coming up at this meeting in terms of Houston. Chicago doesn't have as many hurricanes, but certainly has had its share of major snowstorms.
That's an interesting question, because I and some of my colleagues on the board were urging our leadership to try to offer our expertise in terms of our treatment plant operators, our engineers, if we could send any of our people, because we're so large, we have a little bit of that bandwidth to Texas, to some of the smaller towns. I'm sure their systems were completely out, or to Florida. We didn't get asked to do that, and Dave said that the water utility sector doesn't ask for help very often, and so unlike electric utilities that send scores of teams of workers to other places to help get the grid back up, I don't know that we, at least in the public water and wastewater sector, have that worked out yet.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think you missed it when Yvonne Forrest from City of Houston was talking earlier. She was talking about feeling so alone, and that it was her first time leading a utility during that sort of a crisis, when you're watching your facilities go under, when you're watching your people putting their lives in danger. I know we covered a DC water meeting when George Hawkins had to report to his board about having both a hurricane and an earthquake in the same month. And that so often the biggest disasters are the ones that didn't occur because the folks were on the ground and responding and preventing the level of damage that could be. So what's the role of the board of being able to raise awareness of that when the employees themselves may not be able to get out there and say, hey, look what a good job we did?
Yeah. Well, I know that this recent spate of hurricanes and our urging our executive director and staff to reach out has prompted a lot more communication with at least NACWA. And NACWA's been in touch with the leader in Puerto Rico, who's a member.
Yes.
And I hope that will be a framework to develop a more systematic response and aid program so that we know what systems are in place, what's needed, if something goes down, and how to help.
Yeah, that was great. Well, we're doing our part. We put together a Facebook group called Hurricane Home for Hurricane Impacted People, also known as hippies.
Oh,
so our Home for Hippies, basically just social media, because there were so many citizen journalism type posts from like the head of Corpus Christi, posting every day with pictures of what his staff was doing as well as what his family was doing back home that he couldn't be there. And of course there are the responses where utilities will allow their staff to go spend a week, a month, however long, to do emergency response, and that's a big step. So, well, thank you so much for your time, Debra.
You're most welcome. Thanks for including me.